On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Los Alamos, I'd like to welcome you to the 2024 Primary Election Candidate Forum. My name is Felicia Orth. I'm currently the president. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. Our mission is to enable voters to make educated decisions on election day. We welcome new members, both men and women. Membership forms are available on the back table. They look like this. We also have some copies of the voter guide, which went to every household in Los Alamos last Thursday. You can learn more about us by visiting our website, lwvlosalamos.org. We also have a small donation box back there that's new for us in the event you are moved to support the League in that way. Please silence your cell phones if you would. Reach for any cell phone or device and silence them. This forum is being recorded by Patty. You see the young man in the back of the room there. The video will be uploaded to YouTube. We're very pleased to welcome Margot Batha, here you are, and two volunteer assistants from the Hilltalkers, the high school speech and debate team. They are Eva Gerber and Karina Lanier here. Our county clerk, Naomi Maestas, where did Naomi go? There she is going to say a few words to us about the election before we start with the three races. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to share some election information. For those of you that don't know me, I have the pleasure of being your county clerk for the next 7 months, 21 days, 4 hours, 57 minutes, and 19 seconds. It truly is bittersweet. I love what I do, and I believe in what I do, and it's going to be good to go on to other endeavors and let the next county clerk do a wonderful job here as well. Real quick, I'd like to talk about voter turnout. So we've had 141 voters come into our doors for early voting. That's been since Tuesday till today. We sent out a little over 200 absentee ballots. Real quick plug about absentee. We've been working on legislation for quite some time, and this year we finally passed, well, not me, but our wonderful legislators, with some kind pushing, permanent absentee. So if you have an address within the state of New Mexico that you'd like an absentee to go to your home every election, you can sign up for that. Real quick on early voting. So early voting started on Tuesday, and it's going to continue until Saturday, June 1st. We get extended hours and dates next Saturday. So I'll extend on to Saturday, starting that Saturday to the next 2 Saturdays, ending on June 1st from 8 to 6 p.m. Absentee by mail ends on the 21st, so if you'd like an absentee ballot by mail, please make sure you send in that application by the 21st. Election day is Tuesday, June 4th, which is going to be here before we all know it. And our voting sites are the Los Alamos Municipal Building, White Rock Town Hall, the golf course, Peggy Hart Senior Center, and the University of New Mexico, here in Los Alamos. Real quick, another thing is Los Alamos app. You can get all this information. We have an app. Our county has a Los Alamos Now app. Great information on there. You can go on there and get all that information. You can also get it from our website. And that's about it. I just wanted to wrap up so we can hear from all these wonderful people this evening. Here, if you have any questions, I'm back in the back with all the information as well, and I can answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. All right, let's move to the New Mexico legislature. Again, this is the first of 3 races that we'll be hearing from candidates on, where we have a contested election for state representative in District 43, which covers Los Alamos County, parts of Sandoval and Santa Fe counties. Representatives serve a 2-year term. In ballot order, the candidates with us tonight are Christine Chandler and Chris Lucchini. Mr. Mock declined to participate. Each candidate here has 3 minutes for an introductory statement. When they're finished, we will take questions. Questions must be directed to both candidates. Following question and answer, each candidate will then have another minute for a closing statement. Please hold any applause until after closing statements and show your respect for the process by behaving courteously. So let's start with the opening statements. Again, 3 minutes.
It's really great to see everyone here tonight. I've been looking forward to seeing you all, and I thank the League for organizing this event. Having just passed the 5-year mark as your state representative, I think it a good time to review what I've accomplished and what I hope to achieve moving forward. I am currently the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, one of the most influential committees in the House. Prior to that, I chaired House Taxation and Revenue. I am part of House Leadership team, which places me in a position to shape and advance important policy initiatives. As tax chair, I successfully carried and passed a tax package that included a number of changes that lower taxes for everyday working people. We have added progressivity to our tax code while at the same time lowering taxes for more than 70% of New Mexico taxpayers. I was lead on enacting the state child income tax credit. I was the lead sponsor of the Healthy Workplaces Act that gives every worker in the state earned sick leave. I have also successfully carried a number of pieces of legislation that protect our environment and improve access to health care. And let's not forget the trapping bill, which I co-sponsored with my friend Matthew McQueen. As Judiciary Chair, I play a significant role in prioritizing what legislation will make it to the floor. The workload is heavy, which requires effectively run meetings and knowledge of member priorities. I work collaboratively with my Democratic and Republican colleagues on the committee. I work closely with labor. I strongly support maintaining workers' rights to organize and bargain. Moving forward in the near term, I plan to focus on gun safety legislation. Next session, I'd like to see improvements to the extreme risk fire protection and order law, and plan to carry paid family and medical leave bill over the finish line. I'll close by saying that we in the legislature have done a lot in these last 5 years, working with the governor to protect individual liberties. Women and doctors are protected and free to discuss and make very challenging and heart-wrenching decisions about reproductive health. We protect and support members of the LGBT community. I'm very proud of the work that we've done to support everyday citizens in the state. I ask for your vote.
I'm Chris Legini. I'm a Libertarian candidate. I guess my opponent in the Libertarian primary isn't here today. For those of you that are interested, there is a Libertarian primary debate at Sala at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Post office lost our postcards, so invite your friends to come, and I promise you they will be gloves off, no holds barred, nothing like two Libertarians tearing into each other for political entertainment. Our state, what is the state of our state? We have a lot of issues in our state. We consistently rank very low in economics and education. At the same time, we have a persistent, massive budget surplus. We also have massive unfunded liabilities. We had a $3.4 billion, $3.3 billion surplus. We have almost a $16 billion deficit in the para-retirement system and the educational retirement system. We're the equivalent of a family who got an unexpected check and decided to buy a bass boat. Okay, we need to pay down our liabilities. We need to take care of business. and not just buy a whole bunch of new glitzy toys. It's more like buying a timeshare actually than a bass boat, because you're going to be paying for that forever. We have other issues that we need to address that haven't been effectively addressed. We have our educational system is not good, and it's not a mystery as to why that is, and it's not a mystery how to fix it. Other places have fixed their systems, gotten better at it. We need a mastery-based educational system, not a Prussian-style filtration system. Trust me, come to the debate on Saturday, you know all about it in gory detail. But we can do much, much better. We have the capacity to do much better in education in this state. That also leads into economics of jobs. If you don't have an educated workforce, you're going to have low-end jobs. We also have occupational licensing that makes it incredibly difficult for people to break in. Now, we are at the forefront of occupational licensing reform. New Mexico has been very effective in certain areas. We banned civil asset forfeiture. We banned qualified immunity for police officers. We can be first in occupational licensing. Also in crime. My opponent on stage sponsored a completely valueless crime bill, anti-gun bill. There are things we can actually do to address crime in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, if I put this away from me and I turn this on, let me ask if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Move that to you. We turn now then to the question and answer portion. If you have a question, raise your hand. You have 1 minute, again, being timed to ask your question, and each of the candidates, both will answer all questions, and each of them has 1.5 minutes. So, hands, questions. Mr. Santiago.
Your thoughts on open primaries, please.
Your thoughts on open primaries,
No.
please.
Thanks for asking, Edith. I think you know my position. I do not support open primaries. I've had a hard time getting my head around the notion that primaries are designed to select the representative of a particular party. And I grapple with the notion that members who are not part of the party may participate in the open primary.
We agree. Primaries should not only be closed and the parties should be able to select who gets to vote in those primaries, they shouldn't be paid for by the state. This is a party internal issue about picking their candidates. It is hard enough to keep a organization that has a consistent political philosophy together and then let any random person vote in your primary. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Thank you. Other questions? Raise your hand, please. Barbara.
Yeah, do we have mics?
I believe I have this one. Try it though.
Is it on?
Is it on? Can you hear us?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Thought
it's
I
on.
turned it on. What?
Which was, it's on.
I did turn it on.
No, it's on, I can hear it, you just have to be a little projectile.
Maybe just speak more closely into it.
There we go.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. Many of us support constitutional amendments to modernize the legislature, but even without constitutional amendments, the rules could be changed to make the legislature run more efficiently. Would you support limiting the ceremonial events on the floor? Would you support limiting floor memorials? Would you support limiting the time on floor debates?
Oh, I think, do we do it back and forth? So
Yes,
it's
please.
Chris's turn for now.
I spent a lot of time at the legislature this session, and I was shocked at how much time spent on this performance. These are fine and wonderful things. Let's do them not when the legislature is in session or not during legislative hours. Absolutely, I support every single one of the things you just said.
Barbara, thank you. I want to work, you know, and it is very distracting to have a lot of ceremonial stuff going on. I will say, for those of you who've been watching the legislature for a long time, and I know many of you have, we have cut back on the number of memorials. We are encouraged not to present memorials. We often do these things called certificates instead of a memorial. So there's a balance, because there are people, and we have people who come and visit us from around the state, and they want to see some of the pomp and circumstance associated with government. But 100%, I want to stop all that. Maybe one memorial, a very short ceremonial thing, and let's get to the business of the people. We do put a limit on debate in the House, but the Senate does not. We have a 3-hour limit on debate bills, so that we've done already.
Okay, thank you, now keep it.
Yep.
Other questions? Other questions? Aha, Amy.
Oh, I'm pretty loud. I'm very concerned about gun safety and the gun violence in New Mexico. Can you tell me your approach to that?
Okay. Well, I have supported measures that were filed during the session, so we now have a waiting period. In the past, we've also enacted background checks in the last couple sessions, no guns in voting places. And when referring to the ERPO, that long thing I said in my opening statement, often known as the red flag bill, that is a good bill, and that is something, ERPO saves lives. We know that. We're taking guns away from people who are threats to themselves or others. That is the criteria. And our proposal going forward is, after having consulted with many people in law enforcement, I just had a meeting yesterday in Albuquerque with officers that use ERPO regularly and have found it to be very helpful in saving lives. And I think that's a critical bill, and they have been offering us suggestions on how to improve the effectiveness and the usefulness of ERPO. One issue that came up in case law, I think it's in the First Circuit, this crazy decision that police officers cannot be petitioning parties, and which is nuts. Other districts honor that, because police really know who may be at risk to themselves and others. They're not the only ones. Family members are reluctant often, even though they know it to be the case, because they don't want to be in court testifying about the mental capabilities of their family member.
Extreme risk protection orders are unconstitutional because they violate due process. Period. Stop. Full stop. There are ways to do this in existing law. If you have somebody who has got a psychiatric problem, you can go for the good old psychiatric 72-hour evaluation. Use that. Don't try to make new law that strips away due process. Second of all, there is a piece of gun safety legislation that I support and testified in favor of in the legislature this session. 89% of firearms traced to crime in New Mexico were stolen. 89%. So there was a bill to provide a tax credit for the purchase of a gun safe. No one voted against it, and then it died. We need something like this to incentivize people to lock up their guns. I will not use profanity. I'm in the business, I sell guns, and I ask every single one of my customers if they have a safe, and I shame them if they don't, which, by the way, almost never happens here in Los Alamos. We do know who commits these crimes. We know that how guns are diverted. They're not coming from gun dealers, they're being stolen out of cars. So lock your guns up, and we can address a huge portion of this issue. Some of these other bills, the waiting period, will do absolutely nothing except inconvenience people. I suspect it will be struck down as well. A lot of what is being passed is simply not going to pass court muster. Bill 114 is a cut and paste of existing legislation. I urge you to read the Attorney General's analysis of that bill that my opponent sponsored.
Okay, any other questions? take one more if you have it. Becky.
The Yazzie Martinez, is this working? Decision went a long way to make us make changes in our educational system. But I know that we still have a long way to go. So what's the first thing or the second thing, or as many as you can come up with? What are the things we really need to do next?
Wow, that's a tough one.
I know.
I don't purport to be an education expert. I often look to my colleagues on the House Education Committee that is populated with a bunch of educators. But things that I think we need to be focused on are class size. We haven't really addressed class size in the state, and that is one factor in terms of improving educational outcomes for students, and we haven't been looking at that. Personally, what I believe is kind of the core issue associated with poor educational outcomes is poverty. Poverty. We need to have wraparound services in the schools, and community-based educational process and facilities, I think, is a way to go, and that has been shown to be successful. So, there are a lot of poor families in the state. They need to get to school, and we need to feed them breakfast. If counseling is necessary, we need to have counseling available to our children. Often healthcare is provided at these facilities, and by supporting the whole child, and I think that is the way to go in terms of our educational system, and there has been movement in that direction, certainly with pilot projects and programs and the like, but I think more could be done in that way.
One of the first things that the legislature has the power to do is finish the job of divorcing school funding from property taxes. Poverty, it tends to cluster, it tends to be concentrated, and poor students live in districts with poor property tax size. So let's just eliminate that. It's an archaic system that originated around the building of the railroads across this country. It's silly. We should have direct state funding of schools, eliminate the disparity associated with property tax revenue. You don't have to be a educator to go and look at relative success of other educational systems throughout this country. There are proven things that work. Class size is one of them. Rewarding teachers for outcome is one of them. I don't have the thorny answer I do not have an answer for is the ever-increasing ratio of administrative dollars to teacher dollars. I don't know how that escalation is stopped or reversed. But we've got to get more resources to the individual student and less to the infrastructure of the educational system.
Right, thank you very much. Both of you, we'll move then to closing statements. We have a minute. You may sit or stand as you're comfortable. Good, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I guess I'll start. So a couple of things I missed in my opening statements. Yeah, poverty is a huge issue here. We have a state, which is the only state in our area that taxes services. Services are where all the good jobs are, and where all the jobs that are going to be the jobs that produce wealth in the future. And we tax that. You get less of what you tax, you get more of what you subsidize. Let's stop taxing work, okay? Occupational licensing is a pet peeve of mine. It takes 1,600 hours of training to cut hair. Does that make any sense to anybody here who doesn't own a beauty salon? So yes, we have made progress there. Senator Demi Soto proposed some stuff and got some stuff through during COVID to allow recognition. We need to do more of that. We need to eliminate the occupational licenses that make no sense. We need to encourage people to work and not discourage that. I hope I get your vote. I hope you come to the debate on Saturday.
So I want to thank all of you for allowing me to represent you. And The way I approach my work in the legislature is I study the issue, I work hard, I visit with experts and my colleagues to hear their perspectives, and I work collaboratively. And I try to present a professional, thoughtful representation of all of you. And I think I've done that. And I've seen a lot of you at the House, in the chamber, and talked to you about what your interests are, and I've listened to you, and I've advanced things that I think our community values. And I pledge to continue to do that, and I ask for your support going forward. I'd love to serve you for another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. We'll move then to the next race, which is District Attorney. We have two candidates here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, on this side, we'll just pick up your, pick up your, thank you. This is Mary Carmack Altwies and Marco Cerna. The district attorney covers our county and parts of 2 other counties. These are 4-year terms. We'll follow the same exact format. 3 minutes for an opening statement, several questions, and then a closing statement. So if you would, please.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming tonight. My name is Mary Carmack Altwies, and I am your currently serving district attorney, and I'm so proud to be your currently serving district attorney. It has been an honor to serve the people of this community and the communities of the 1st Judicial District, which are Rio Arriba, Santa Fe, and Los Alamos counties. When I took office in 2021, the DA's office was in shambles. The office had been neglected, and there had been a complete lack of leadership for about 3 years. Los Alamos had been completely ignored as a priority. The prior administration had left behind homicide and officer-involved shooting backlogs. Diversion programs were at a standstill, and office morale was at an all-time low. When I ran last time, I pledged to the community of Los Alamos that I would make this county a priority and work with the police department to improve relationships and get better quality investigations and prosecutions. This morning, I had a meeting with Chief Zambala and Deputy Chief Morris. This is a meeting that I instituted upon taking office so that we had a way to communicate between our offices about concerns. Deputy Chief Morris ended the meeting this morning by telling me that in his 20 years as a cop, he has never had more communication or a better working relationship with our office. My other pledge was to hire a prosecutor from Los Alamos, to prosecute in Los Alamos. That had been a frequent complaint that I heard when I was out speaking to constituents. I immediately set about to recruit a Los Alamos prosecutor, and while that admittedly took a while, I was able to recruit Liz Counts, who's right there. Liz is one of the best prosecutors in this state. I have known her for about 20 years now. I met her down in Albuquerque when we were both practicing, and she was in the Crimes Against Children unit. She took on the hardest of the hard cases, and she won more than she lost. She had retired from legal work and was living up here, and I recruited her to come back, and now she is serving this community as its prosecutor. That attention and care that my office has paid to Los Alamos means that cases are getting prosecuted more effectively and with better results. My office has successfully cleared all the homicide and officer-involved shooting backlogs that I was left with. It guarantees that officer-involved shootings are now reviewed personally by me within 45 days. We're also holding violent offenders accountable and gun crimes, someone asked about that. by moving to detain every person that is accused of fleeing law enforcement or discharging a firearm. In short, this office is finally running the way that a DA's office should be run. It has an active, involved, and competent prosecutor, one who shows up and does the work every day. I'm not in this for the community paycheck, I'm in it to improve our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cern. Hold your applause.
Sorry, I have trouble with my button. Good evening, everybody. My name is Marco Serna, and I'm running for District Attorney. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and being informed voters for these very, very important elections. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum for us. I am born and raised here in northern New Mexico. I grew up in Espanola and in Santa Fe, and I grew up and have seen the changes that have happened throughout this community, specifically the issues with DWI, the issues with opioid addiction, and the issues with domestic violence. I can tell you that growing up in northern New Mexico was a blessing, but it's unfortunate to see what has happened and what has transpired since then. A little bit about my background: I'm a career prosecutor. I started my career in the 13th Judicial District, where I then jumped to the Attorney General's office, actually with you, Tony, which you took me under your wing. I appreciate that. And then ran successfully for District Attorney and have continued my prosecutorial career after an unsuccessful bid for Congress. Most recently, I was with the Association of District Attorneys, where I was special counsel and I prosecute cases throughout the state, but also I had the opportunity to train not only attorneys, but also law enforcement, specifically with domestic violence. I pledge to you and vow to you that if I am able to take office again as district attorney, that I will immediately do away with the current DWI policy, which I believe is a public health, or excuse me, a public risk, and has created issues with how numbers are recognized and the genuine truth to the public. Second, I vow to you that I will be fiscally responsible with the budget. Currently, our district attorney has the Russ case, which I'm sure you're all aware of, where there have been 4 special prosecutors that have been appointed, a PR firm. We're upwards of $400,000, I think I last read. And I think that that's just not acceptable. I think that I would trust my attorneys and myself to address any type of case that comes across our office or our desks, excuse me, regardless of who the suspect or defendants are. Lastly, I vow to you that I will have a transparent office, that I will not only hold individuals accountable who are committing crimes, but also hold myself and my attorneys in my office accountable for anything that may happen. Again, my name is Marco Serna. I appreciate you all coming and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on to that.
Yes, ma'am.
And you cannot turn it off
Yes, ma'am.
without unscrewing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just hold on to it for a second there. We're gonna move to the
ballot.
you can hear me, yes? The question and answer portion now. Again, questions? It's not happening? Questions? Yes? All right. Questions can last up to a minute. The answers will be up to a minute and a half by both candidates. Sir.
Hello, is this on? Yeah. Okay. Name a felony case that you prosecuted while serving as district attorney and a complex legal issue that you navigated while prosecuting that case.
That's a great question. I have personally prosecuted, I want to say about 15 or 16 jury trials while I've been district attorney. I've also taken on a full caseload, including multiple homicides. The most high-profile homicide that I prosecuted was the state of New Mexico versus Joseph Jones, which was the first DNA genealogy case in the state of New Mexico. And we got a conviction to first-degree murder on that. He's currently serving a life sentence. The legal issue that I prosecuted was about that DNA genealogy. We had to really fight to be able to show how DNA got to a lab, and then they did genealogy magic and figured out a great aunt that lived in Santa Fe, and they were able to link it to the suspect. That was it was a brand new issue in New Mexico, and we got it in, and we got the conviction.
Great question, thank you. The case that comes to mind that I was actually most proud of to start off with, unfortunately I wasn't able to finish the adjudication of that considering COVID, and then unfortunately, and then I had the unsuccessful bid for Congress. But it was State v. Mark Heiss, and this is the case that happened right in front of Okeo Casino, a horrible shooting, mistaken identity of a young teenage college boy who was shot, unfortunately. I took that case on directly with Blake Nichols, who was one of my star prosecutors. We did the dangerousness hearing, and also got the case ready for prosecution. With regard to complex issues, there weren't necessarily complex issues, but what made that case what brings it to my mind is the fact that the community, how affected the community was in Espanola when that case happened. I wish I could have taken it to full trial. Unfortunately, again, due to COVID, I wasn't able to. But what I really am sorry for is that Mr. Martinez, who is Cameron's dad, passed away of a heart attack prior to seeing his son get justice. And that's something that I will regret that we weren't able to get the court to allow us to try it, considering the COVID pandemic. Thank you, great question.
All right, other questions? The district attorney?
Thank you. So as the assigned district attorney, somebody who's been a district attorney for about 20 years, as Mary pointed out, one of the things that I personally would like to know is you both have hit on the fact that you're going to keep your office accountable, your underlings, so to speak, people like me, accountable, and your police officers. Can you give me an example in your time in office? You both have had one term under you now. Marco is, before he made his unsuccessful bid, as he keeps telling us, and Mary. Can you give us examples of how you did that while you were in office as district attorney?
Sure, and if I can quickly circle back to the Mark Heiss case that my opponent just spoke about, he failed to show up for jury selection, so he did not prosecute that case. It was prosecuted during my administration, and we got the first-degree conviction. With regard to holding officers accountable, one of the things that I came into, and I was chagrined to find out, was that there was a multi-year backlog of officer-involved shootings. And I pledged to fix that, and within 18 months I had gone through those 16 cases that were left over from the previous administration. Now, when an officer-involved shooting comes to me, within 45 days of the submission of the case to my office, I personally review it, and I make the decision about whether it was a justified shooting or not. And so what that does is that brings accountability to that officer, often to the defendant or the decedent, whether the person survived or not. And often the community knows that what the decision is and whether we have a dirty cop, a bad cop on the streets, or if we have a justified shooting. And so that is something that I've done to hold officers accountable.
Great question again. Despite the allegations from my opponent, while I was a district attorney, we did address officer-involved shootings. Actually, directly after my tenure as district attorney, I started to work for the Attorney General's office, as the LEAB prosecutor. That's the Law Enforcement Academy Board prosecutor, where I would prosecute officers who had either used excessive force or had become a problem. I would prosecute them for their certification to ensure that they do not, they can't be on the streets wielding that type of power in inappropriate manners. So I have direct experience, great question by the way, and I don't think you're an underling, I think you're a great attorney. But I would bring that to the office, that additional experience to the office, but I did handle those officer-involved shootings when they would come across my desk. Thank you, great question.
All right, hold on to the mic.
Yes, ma'am.
I saw a hand way over there, yes.
And again, thank you for the legal, we wouldn't be so informed if the legal women voters weren't doing these things. I believe in the free press. I believe that they're the fourth estate, as they're called. And last year, this office was admonished by Larry Barker for the DUI numbers that were coming out. It's very troubling, considering the fact that DUI is such a big issue here. Last week, the New Mexican did the same. They really, essentially what they're saying is the DA's office is cooking the books. I really want to know, are you willing to pull back on this policy? We can see the press is saying it's failing. We have more repeat offenders. Can we address this?
Thank you, great question, absolutely. As I indicated in my introduction to you all, that was one of the vows or pledges, I can't remember what terminology I used for that particular one, that I would eliminate that policy immediately, because I do believe it creates a risk to our public, to our streets, to our families and children. If you do read that article, which I recommend you do out of the Santa Fe New Mexican, the numbers that they produced utilizing the statistical data, or at least the way my opponent has utilized statistical data, I actually had a 93% conviction rate, which is higher than her current 87% conviction rate. The reason I am not touting that, and the reason I'm not putting that in mailers or commercials, is because that is not an appropriate statistic in my opinion. I believe, as you use, sir, cooking the books is a great term to use. My opponent is utilizing statistics with cases that they only take to trial. This isn't the cases that have been dismissed. What that Larry Barker story showed was that there was an excess of 400 cases that had not been refiled. As a result, we did some research and we found that 300 of those cases have run, the statute of limitation has run. So essentially approximately 300 DWI offenders got to get out of jail free cards. So absolutely, I will be transparent not only with my numbers but my office, and will ensure that that policy is eliminated as soon as I take office. Thank you.
My opponent's comments are patently false. False. The data is on my website, first-jva.com. You can go look at it. He also mischaracterizes the New Mexican article. There were not 400 cases that were not refiled. There were cases that were not refiled that weren't refiled under his administration. Our statistics are true. The public defender backs us up. The people that are in court with us every day and that are our adversaries back us up 100%. Santa Fe Police Department backs us up 100%. Our conviction rate is 87%. We are not cooking the books, and my opponent is free to release his analysis, but we haven't seen it. And what's interesting about my DWI policy is that my opponent keeps attacking the policy, even though everyone across the board agrees that convictions are up. But what we haven't talked about is that his conviction rates were abysmal. They were not 93%. 2 out of every 3 people that walked into court with the DWI in Santa Fe County walked out scot-free. I am showing up and trying to change that, trying to do something about it, while he was content to fail.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
I do have a question, just taking the last one step back. What is the DWI policy?
Sure, actually that's a great and helpful question. So what we do in our office when a case comes in, an arrest is made, the person is getting out of jail the very next day, no matter what we want. And upon them being released from jail, we do dismiss or press pause on the case. Then my office gets the discovery from different police, the different law enforcement agencies. Once we get that, we refile it because we have everything we need in order to prosecute it. What was happening before was we wouldn't get everything we needed. The case would be active. We would walk into court, not have a body-worn camera, something like that, and the case would get dismissed. And so huge amounts of cases were getting dismissed on technicalities. I have taken the dismissals on technicalities out of the equation. They get refiled, all of them get refiled. All of them get refiled. There were about 17 cases last year that didn't get refiled because they were blatant constitutional violations. Then we are able to prosecute them successfully, and we have an 87% conviction rate. You need more than an officer and a breath card. You have to have everything in order to prosecute successfully, or the case gets dismissed and the person walks out of the courtroom with no consequences whatsoever. The conviction is what matters, and that's what we're getting every single day.
Thank you, Jennifer Paget, Chief Deputy District Attorney for the First Judicial District. Great question. I guess it's fair to say my opponent and I can agree to disagree on the numbers. With that being said, I have had several conversations, not only with the judiciary, but also with law enforcement with regard to this policy. And again, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with my opponent with regard to the overwhelming approval from both. I have actually heard the exact opposite. In fact, I had an officer call me when they, email me when they looked at my website and saw that I would immediately go do away with this policy, asking for a sign. When I went to their house to deliver the sign and discuss what I will bring to the table, his wife comes out and specifically says, "I'm tired of this policy. My husband works late hours," and for those of you that don't know, DWIs, it's a lot of paperwork for officers, sometimes up to 3 hours worth of paperwork. So it's not like it's a quick, they do the stop and that's it. A lot of work goes into it, and she tells me that this policy is keeping my husband away from us and our children, and they're not even prosecuting. So these are the conversations I'm having. Again, I disagree with the statistics that my opponent is presenting. And I ask you all, look at the articles in the New Mexican from last Sunday on the 5th. Judge it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Look at the articles and look at the numbers. Thank you. Great question.
All right, we'll take one more question if you have it, sir, in the back.
During the previous forum, the gentleman mentioned the rate at which stolen firearms are repeatedly used in crimes after they're stolen. I had a firearm stolen out of my vehicle, and the person was caught and offered a plea agreement under the current DA's office. I repeatedly reached out to the DA's office and the judge to let him know that I was not in agreement to this plea agreement, and essentially was never responded to. Nothing ever happened with it, and the plea went through. The gentleman reoffended later on, again, stolen firearms, stolen vehicle, and trafficking. And I think the case is currently pending again, but I would like to know why this happened, why a victim was not, their opinion was not addressed, and what you're going to do in the future to let this happen again.
Well, that isn't my case, but I do appreciate the question. Good question. When it comes to firearms, I think we can all agree that cannot be taken lightly in any stretch of the imagination, whether it be somebody who's taking guns, stealing guns, or using them in a crime. This may be the one thing that my opponent and I do agree on, is anything involving a firearm should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, because of how dangerous those situations can be. Another unfortunate reality with the gun issue here in New Mexico is this goes back to when I was district attorney, we're seeing a lot of guns being brought on Highway 40 and 25 by teenagers. And the reason that they're doing this is because if the teenagers get caught, they're charged as juveniles, so they're not looking at the time. Think about how scary that is, that juveniles are the ones that are running these guns for whomever. So under my administration, if I'm lucky enough to get your support and to win this election, I vow that I absolutely will treat all firearm cases and treat them the way they should be treated, and assure that the fullest extent of the law will be brought to bring those people to justice. Thank you.
Well, to address your comments, I am very sorry that happened to you. If you would like to speak with me after the forum, I can follow up and find out exactly what happened. Without knowing anything about your name or the case, it's hard to speak to that specific situation. What I can tell you is there is a policy in my office that when a firearm is involved, that my attorneys are not allowed to offer certain plea agreements. Unless there is a fatal flaw with the case, and in which case they have to go to a chief deputy in order to get permission. My attorneys are under, and there's a lot of them here that you can ask them, they are under strict orders to return phone calls and communicate with victims. And so the fact that happened very much upsets me, and I hold my attorneys accountable to that. They are expected to work with and consult with victims. And we do that, I would say, before you stood up, I would have said across the board. We are a very responsive office. If you have a concern, you can always call the office and ask for me. I return calls. You can also send us an email. I'm happy to give you my email as well, so we can make sure that doesn't happen again.
Thank you. You were emailed on that when I sent it.
I don't recall that, I don't know your name. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move to closing statements. You have a minute each.
This button's just going to give me problems all day. Well, thank you again for coming, listening to us. Again, my name is Marco Serna, and I just want to reiterate the fact that I do not take this job lightly. I have dedicated my career to public service. Win, lose, or draw, I'm going to continue to do public service and continue to prosecute in any capacity that I can. In closing, the DWI policy, I'm sorry, we're going to have to agree to disagree. With regard to the fiscal responsibility of the office, again, I will bring fiscal responsibility. I won't hire special prosecutors for high-profile cases. I will ensure that I trust myself and my attorneys to handle those cases. And lastly, transparency. Under my watch, nobody's First Amendment rights will be violated. The media will be respected. And with that, I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Well, in closing, I would ask for your vote. There is a reason why so many members of my office are here tonight. This office is a well-run office. Everybody, the morale is good, and prosecutions are happening every day. There's also a reason why I have been endorsed by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Union, by the Rio Arriba Sheriff's Department. Law enforcement officers that I have worked with, that I work with personally every single day, know what a difference that I have made, and know that the way that the office is getting run and getting paid attention to is far better than how it had been. We are doing wonderful work. I have a wonderful staff, and every day we are out there fighting to make this community safer. So I ask for your vote, and again, thank you for coming and participating tonight.
Thank you both very much.
Can I keep this?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so now we're going to turn to the Los Alamos County Council, which consists of 7 members elected at large for staggered 4-year terms. We have 5 candidates and 3 open seats in 2024, which will be filled by the 3 candidates receiving the most votes. I know there are a couple of ballots, but in the ballot order that appears in the voter's guide, the candidates are Beverly Neal Clinton, Lynn Herman, Denise Durkis, James Wernicke, and David Rieger. If you would pick up your faceplate, we'll have 2 of you over here and 3 of you over here. Now, I know Mr. Wernicke had a conflict, he was in another meeting, but I do have, let's see. He's still here, I think Naomi might have. I think Naomi took my printout of Mr. Wernicke's statement, so I'm going to read it off my phone. Danger of sharing podiums. All right, so let's start with candidate Neal Clinton. Again, we'll do 3-minute introductory statements, and you're going to have to share this. We can do that. All right, all the way down, please.
Good evening. That is dark. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Beverly Neal Clinton, and I am running for county council. I'm going to read this off because I want to make sure I capture all my thoughts. So my journey standing here began as a woman Marine who is still hard charging because I believe in America. Previously certified international stenographer, both in voice and in stenotype, to a former land employee, and at the center of it all, always having been a small business owner. It is my intent to create a roadmap about me so that we can begin a dialogue to answer any questions that you may have. I have 3 issues that are near and dear to me, and they are affordable housing. The affordable portion should be bolded, italicized, and underlined. I remember when houses were on the market for only days and were sold normally without a broker through word of mouth. I remember thinking, how can we afford to live here and keep our children, or at least be able to feed and clothe them? The second is inclusivity. When we moved here right after the Cerro Grande fire, there were 0.01% of folks here who looked like me. Considering how much we'd previously traveled with their dad, our sons were introduced to stereotypes. When we left South Carolina, they knew judges who were on the Supreme Court, Appellate Court, and Circuit Courts by their first names. But I'm happy to say that now we've raised that number of people who look like me to 1.14% in 24 years. Mental health, it's not a buzzword for me. I do see many beautiful minds here, but I was lucky enough, and I'm also lucky enough to be married to one over there. To be clear, it is in that beauty, there is a walk on the razor's edge that could lead you to other places. Los Alamos' tagline is, where discoveries are made. For me, the choice to run is obvious, given today's climate. From the Venn diagram intersecting my 3 pillars for my platform, those are the places where you can find me. Though each of those voice speaks in a reflective tone, I believe that's where I'll make a difference. As a Marine, I'm fearless. As a small business owner, I'm not afraid of bigger players. Regarding inclusivity, I'm in that number of individuals who are changing the landscape here from Los Alamos. I've said all of that to say this. I am Los Alamos. I've discovered that you can find clarity about who you are, what you're capable of, how you can contribute, and finally, for what
And finally, for what to do when you really stand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold your applause until after closing statements. Candidate Arnold.
Good evening. I'm Ren Herman. My husband and I have lived in Los Alamos for 27 years, and we raised our 3 children here. I was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years, but I didn't stay home very much. I volunteered with the schools and many organizations that our family was involved with. Since then, I've been working for Los Alamos Commerce and Development Corporation for the past 10 years. I'm the Los Alamos Chamber of Commerce Director, and I help our small business community, and I've been doing that for 7 years. I will be retiring from the Chamber in August, and I would like to continue to serve Los Alamos as a county councilor. My experience working with our small business community and our entrepreneurs make me uniquely qualified to understand the challenges our small businesses face. My 27 years as a Los Alamos resident make me want to improve our community and make it a better place for all of our residents to live. I love this town, but there is room for improvement. Downtown revitalization and keeping retail and restaurants in our town matters. It's not an easy place to run a business. I know it's my job to help these small businesses. Fostering trust between the business owners and our citizens and the county government would go a long way. I'm also passionate about sustainability, and I believe that Los Alamos County should be a leader in New Mexico, and I will support the great work that our county is doing to move us towards this. My other priority is our quality of life in Los Alamos. There are many topics to focus on here: our housing shortage, the well-being of our children, inclusivity of all residents, protecting our open spaces and recreation, and the mobility and public safety of our residents and commuters are all top of the list for me. I believe the role of a county councilor is to engage with the residents and businesses of Los Alamos, to listen and then represent them when making educated decisions, to make Los Alamos a stronger community and a better place to live. I thank all of the candidates for caring about our community enough to run for public office. I appreciate that we have people here that want to make a difference. And I also thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I hope you will consider voting for me now in the primary and again in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Durkis, hold your applause till after closing.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidate forum and to all those attending tonight. My name is Denise Durkis. I'm running for re-election to County Council because I want to continue to help Los Alamos County plan for growth and embrace the future while preserving the past and the amenities that make the county a great place to live. I was born and raised in New Jersey and have lived in 10 states, but together with my husband, I chose to live here in White Rock, to raise our 3 sons here, and to stay here in retirement. As a 42-year resident of the county and a retiree from Los Alamos National Laboratory after 20 years of employment, I have both the desire and the time to study and address the challenges currently facing the county. I hope to continue to apply my personal experience raising a family in the county and my professional experience as Chief of Staff to senior management at the laboratory to serving on the council. I'm serving in my 2nd year as council chair and 4th year on council. During my service on council, I gained a full understanding of council procedures and authorities and in-depth knowledge of county operations and challenges. I've learned the complexities of the county budget and recognized the importance of fiscal responsibility. I've worked strategically with my fellow councilors to establish county priorities and develop tools to track county performance. I am conscious of my role as a public servant, and I am accountable to my constituents for my decisions. I recognize 3 overarching issues facing the county in the immediate future: housing development, downtown revitalization, and community services. The county has identified the need for some 2,000 additional housing units, particularly low and middle income housing, for rent and for ownership. Multiple housing projects are currently in various stages of planning and development. I support streamlining county codes and permitting processes and ongoing county efforts to explore housing options and all possible building sites to meet community needs. Downtown revitalization in Los Alamos and in White Rock is essential for a thriving community. I support county policies and processes that facilitate small business development and sustainability to expand employment, shopping, and social activities necessary for a growing population and a well-rounded community. Inclusive and accessible community services contribute to the quality of life that county residents value and want to preserve as the county grows. I support enhanced maintenance and upgrades to utilities, broadband, roads, public transportation, parks and rec facilities, trails and open spaces, and our state-funded public schools. These are my priorities that I've identified. I welcome input from you, the people of the county, on how to best address these priorities and to embrace the future while preserving the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rieger.
My name is David Rieger, and I'm running for re-election to the Los Alamos County Council. In the last 4 years, I have been pushing back against all kinds of government overreach in the county. I was the only councilor to vote in favor of the Surfy appeal of his red tag of the bar and restaurant project on Central Avenue. He since filed a lawsuit, and the state judge has recently ruled in his favor that, in fact, the county did not pursue a process that satisfied civil rights law. The whole mess really should have been settled years ago, but I was the only one who was arguing in favor of this small business. I voted to preserve the movie theater as a private business. The county attempted to buy the theater, and the council defeated that by a measure, that purchase by a single vote. The county has proposed a GRT tax, when we are really flooded in revenue, and that's the way the GRT and the lab work. We've been flooded in revenue. Our biggest problem in this environment is really spending money wisely. We don't need more money, we need to spend the money we have wisely. And several Democrats joined me in voting down the tax increase in 2023. And last year, the council voted this winter to put off the tax increase to 2027. But I think if I'm not on the council, it will certainly happen. I argued against the oppressive coronavirus regulations from both the governor and LAMO. These included lockdowns and shop mandates, and I think these are some of the worst things that outsiders have done to our county in my memory. They're terrible things to do, and probably in the history of the county. The small business community has never recovered from this. The impacts today continue in the form of inflation and all of our costs and property values, and we certainly see that with the housing crunches we're having. All of these coronavirus measures were really accompanied by large campaigns demonizing both the people that tried to stay open and the unvaccinated people who refused the vaccine. And in this world, the national corporate media, especially these media giants, are kind of really demonizing people who disagree with them. And oftentimes, the division is over false or disinformation. They divide everyday Americans with information that is not very accurate, turn them against each other, and then stridently get people more and more angry. So I've seen this before on a bunch of different issues. What it really is corporate marketing. So when they have a lot of angry people over vaccines, it's because they're trying to sell vaccines and some people aren't listening. And some of the disinformation is the people who are right. So among these nonsensical ideas, there's wars all around the world. They don't help us, they're for defense contractors. There's man-made climate change as a threat to civilization. Well, that's not really true. There's a lot of things going on in climate change. And I have some data here to show you it really isn't even very threatening. Coronavirus measures were for public health, no, and so forth. When we drag all these broken ideas into our county, we are just harming our citizens, and it's important for the council not to allow that. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would hold on to that, you can be the first to answer a question. Before you do that though, let me ask if Mr. Warnke is here. Candidate Warnke? No, all right. So I have a statement from him that he sent to us this afternoon, and if you would please time me for that. No, I have a microphone. It's working, yes, okay. Again, this is a statement by James Warnke. Thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight to earn your vote for Los Alamos County Council. I'm running because I see so much potential for Los Alamos to do good, not only for ourselves, but also for our neighbors and future generations. What better place to experiment with ideas for economic, social, and environmental progress than Los Alamos? We have virtually none of the burdens of other communities and all of the privileges they dream of. Maybe that sounds like work, and maybe that isn't really your thing if you have it good already. But to whom do you owe to live in such privilege? Was it not the visionaries before us that set us up for our prosperity? Don't we owe it to the next generation to do the same? Los Alamos has a strategic plan, but I believe comfort has made us complacent. We must hold ourselves accountable to take action. Since I ran for council 2 years ago, I've sought to better understand how to navigate local politics and spur action. I'm on 3 county boards and commissions, as well as a number of local community boards. I have fought relentlessly to make sure all parties are equitably served, and I frequently attend meetings, write letters, and have conversations with community leadership about topics such as transparency, housing, business, transportation, energy, health, safety, and environmental stewardship. As a younger candidate, I bring fresh perspectives, more diverse representation, and fervor for accountability. Now that I have some experience to back it up, I hope you'll consider me worthy of your vote. Best regards, James Warnke. All right. Let's move then to questions. Same format, 1 minute for questions, 1.5 minutes per candidate for answers. Leslie, there.
Thank you, candidates, for your time in running and helping our county. My question involves the excessive number of deer all over our land and our yards. I'm wondering what creative solutions you could propose to cull the herd.
You're first.
Well, thank you. Well, I think some people have blamed the flood of deer on people feeding them, but I don't think that's really true. I think they feed on just shrubbery and gardening that you put in your garden. What has really never been restored after the fire is the ecosystem outside of the town. And there just isn't enough forage for them, and it's much easier to come in and browse on your plants. And I think the best thing to do is to focus on the canyons and the areas around us where we have plenty of potential forage, but it was all destroyed by various fires and flash floods, and that needs to be restored. And then they can hopefully will return to their more to their native forage.
Thank you. Next, 1.5 minutes.
So the council did consider an ordinance that would have banned feeding of animals, but we voted to first launch an education campaign, which the county has implemented regarding feeding of all kinds of animals, not just deer. And we will check back on that in a few months. The idea is to give it a year to see if it's effective. And if it is not, we will reconsider an ordinance that will address the issue. Yes, the forest fires that we've had in the past have definitely contributed to the animals moving into town. But some people are feeding the deer, so we do have a two-pronged issue that we're going to look at. So again, we'll bring that back after a year's time and see what we need to do. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. I think it's great what the county is doing. The educating about the issue, feeding the deer is a great place to start. Other than that, I'm not too sure what else we should be doing about it. They have been helping me with some of the weeds in my yard recently, so that's been appreciated. And so that's about all I have for that one. Thanks, Leslie.
So the beauty of going last is that I get to hear everyone else's responses. And I have to say that's not a question that's ever popped in my mind, so thank you for that. Deer, animals, life, wildlife in general. I actually appreciate that here in Los Alamos. I appreciate being able to drive down the road and see the deer who have enough sense to make me stop my car so they can cross the street. So I'm not really sure how we could handle that. The basis, I believe, would be education. Obviously, they're just being animals, but we're sentient beings, so we should be able to figure this out. How we do that, I don't know. That's why you have people who know about animals and they can tell us what to do. So that's my take.
Thank you. Keep the microphone.
Well, now
There
I
was
go
a-
first.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. At a recent Chamber of Commerce breakfast, the head of the County Housing Development Department made a troubling statement. He said that the two segments of housing that are needed in the county are in the 350K and below range, which I agree with wholeheartedly, and in the 750K range, which I totally disagree with. As a local real estate broker, I can tell you the segment who are looking for a home and currently not housed or are renting within the county, and it's not in the 750K range. As a county councilor, how would you help to make sure this disparity in information is corrected and make sure the right segment of housing is being proposed and planned? Thank you.
Great question. That's one of my three pillars. I even said to someone earlier, I doubt very seriously we're going to get out of this room without somebody asking about housing. Having said that, when I think of housing, we just do this blanket statement, but we need to think about student housing, workforce housing, and then the $700,000 houses. I looked at something the other day that said our median income here is $135,000. I doubt very seriously that people over at Smith's are making that. Just want to throw that out. So if we're bringing all these people in and they don't have anywhere to stay, that's going to be an issue. I think it's going to be an ongoing issue because it is. We look at the salaries, they're not commensurate with these houses. We're bringing tons of people in, but you know, if you can't bring your family, you're probably not going to stay. So it's one of those things that we really need to drill down on and have real conversations, because when I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission and when they built Miramar down in White Rock, I said to them, so what's affordable housing? Like, really, what's a number? And they did a great song and dance, and that is not what happened. So being accountable, holding those people accountable, again, if we want to keep people here, we have to take care of them. And that means a roof over your head.
Thank you. This is important for all of us. Housing is critical to our county right now. I think I've missed one chamber breakfast in the last 7 years, and that was the one I missed. I'm so sorry. But, you know, I think I'd even say this is a housing crisis. But we desperately need housing for our workforce, and this is not an easy fix. We need workforce housing so that there are people here to work for our small businesses, not just the lab, but our teachers, our police, our firefighters, the people that work in our stores, and our small businesses. Right now, there are a lot of housing units being developed, and I don't think any of them are affordable housing. It is what they call market rate because there is demand for that. I'm not sure exactly what level it is, but we have very expensive housing up here. We need more affordable housing, like Canyon Walk down on DP Road. I think the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area that just passed allows for some tools that will enable the county to make a difference with this. I support us looking for creative, more equitable housing that helps everyone.
Thank you. So I will certainly inquire about the statement from staff about 750 and below, but there are many people moving into to the county from states where housing is priced at that level. Many years ago, when we moved here, we came from the DC area, and it was actually comparable pricing. So not everyone realizes a culture shock, a price tag shock rather, when they come to Los Alamos. But we definitely need to focus on low and middle income housing. Most of the developments that are being planned for the community and that are underdeveloped now are multifamily, which by definition are lower income. Not low income, but certainly in a more affordable price range. As others mentioned, the recent approval of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area for Los Alamos, and there's also one in White Rock, will give the county some new tools such as private partnerships, development incentives, possibly tax abatements, but other tools that are not otherwise allowed that will help facilitate more mixed-use development and more housing in a price range that is affordable to more people in the county. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I didn't understand if you said 750 and above, or and above.
That,
Yeah, that's,
if you want to clarify,
yeah. So we are desperately short of housing of all kinds. In the past, when the lab had a big expansion, say just at the beginning of the lab, it's even current in the Oppenheimer movie we've all been watching lately, they had to build a whole town. And then after that, even in the 60s, they built White Rock, because the lab was growing substantially in the whole town of White Rock. And since that time, they're not helping us very much. We are, according to this, I think it was Mr. Osborne you're probably talking about, and when he had some numbers like 7,000 people commuting into town. But they probably come with families, so that's housing for like 20,000 people. I mean, it's more than White Rock. Now, maybe only half of those people actually want to live here. So then you still need 10,000 people. So it's really a town the size of White Rock that the lab has to build, and they just haven't done it. The only thing they can substitute for that, and it's not a good substitute, but we can at least build some transport. And what we really need is transport south to Albuquerque. And yeah, I'm sure my liberal friends would love to have a train, and I would vote for that. Anything that would move people out of here more efficiently than everybody going down this one snaky highway through the mountains, and then everyone is forced to come up that in the morning. We already see all the accidents, so it is just unacceptable. So the lab has to either give us more housing, which is the only responsible thing to do when you hire all the people, or they have to give us better transit, a highway southward, some way to connect to Albuquerque more efficiently. If they don't do one of those two things, they're not being responsible owners of the lab.
Thank you. Right, you'll go first this time. Other questions? Yes.
So, I just want to know what your approach was to the nuisance code, and whether you believe that there's certain tarps that should be over your car in your driveway.
Tarps?
Tarps. That was discussed maybe a year and a half ago when I believe Councilor Durkheim had a comment about tarps over cars.
Okay.
So I do support the nuisance code. I did vote in favor of it. It was a revision to the existing code that eliminated many of the more strict restrictions in the previous code, such as weeds. Weeds were completely eliminated in the code. So from my perspective, the code had was more acceptable to the broad population in the county. I did serve on the Community Development Advisory Board, which looked into the code. And while I was on that board, I did do research in codes in other communities and found that for the most part, the old code in Los Alamos was either comparable or less restrictive than codes in other areas. And the county has done surveys. We had 2 surveys that were done related to the nuisance code, and both of them indicated that about, see if I remember these numbers, that about 40% of the population was in favor of the nuisance code, 30% was opposed, and 20% was indifferent, and the remaining 10% had no opinion. So more people in the county do support a nuisance code than do not. And that was the reason for my support for the code and the restrictions in the code, including those related to inoperable vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that the current version of the nuisance code that we have has been very diluted relative to previous nuisance codes. So there's almost no enforcement in it. There is one problematic area, or a lot of the rules have been loosened so much. There is one problematic area where there are punishments. You can get fines that are several $100s a day, and they could accumulate. And that's never been fixed in the text of the law. And everyone noted it, but in the course of trying to move it along, there's only so many modifications and amendments you can actually make in a legislative process. So I tried to stop that a long time ago, never got that change made, and now that's what's passed into law. And we have, so there could be, in principle, the county has never done this yet, but you don't want to leave that out there. There's hundreds of dollars a month in fees that they could charge you for your nuisance code violations. And the only thing that fixes that kind of is that the rules are much looser now on weeds and other things. But there are still fence violations that could really pile up. And I think that part of the nuisance code needs to be fixed.
Thank you. Next to candidate Neil Clinton, and then we'll finish with candidate Herman.
So when I was in leadership Los Alamos, we had a conversation about the nuisance code and weeds and all of that. Part of my capstone project was to come up with other solutions that maybe people hadn't thought about. Having done that, we talked to both sides, we talked to a lot of people. Baseline, everybody was in agreement with we need to do something. Now what that something is, we couldn't nail it down. But I believe that, again, having the conversation is what starts it. So I'm new, hadn't voted, hadn't seen it, but first blush, that's my take.
Thank you. Lisa, great question. I don't know about the tarps, but I would say I'm in favor of having a the nuisance code. Enforcing that is very difficult. I think candidate Neil Clinton is right. There need to be more conversations about it.
Hold on to the mic.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes. I'll just talk loud. I am concerned that we live in a science-based town with a very respected laboratory, and our small town, every town will have to deal with climate change in the future in different ways. And I would like each of you to tell me what is your source, where do you get your ideas or your beliefs about climate change, and maybe just one idea of how we could handle it in the future.
Thank you for the question, Amy. My source is science, and climate change is real. I think we've seen some interesting things happening, with solar panels and whatnot here in the community, which has been interesting to witness. But I think that with the county having a goal of being carbon neutral by 2040, there are going to have to be some changes, and there are going to be some tough conversations. This is sometimes a conflict, but we need to balance these issues and move forward, I think. I care about the future, and we need to do what's right for our community and for the younger generation. As we look ahead at our energy needs and alternate energy options, I think it's important to keep in mind that technology changes and at a rapid pace, and I think we need to, there are lots of factors that we need to consider as we plan for the coming decades. I think the community is doing a great job with the Climate Action Plan. So hang on, there's going to be lots of changes.
To Neil Clement, please.
Thank you for that question, Amy. Climate, we all need it. I mean, if we're not future forward thinking about not only just us, but our future generations, I don't know why we're here. We say this is where discoveries are made. That's a hard question, but we can figure it out. We're smart enough to do that. Now, again, how do we do that? That's where we bring in those SMEs, those subject matter experts who can give us guidance. Because when you're saying to me that, oh no, we don't have a problem with climate, and I'm hearing about what's going on in Nebraska right now, I've got some folks over there, they are, they understand Tornado Alley. We don't. God forbid, if we get a tornado here, we're done. We're just done. But, I said all that again to say this. The climate is changing, it's real. We need to do our part, because if we don't, then it's just going to impact our future and the future generations. And that to me is it's a no-brainer.
I have to go over to Councilor Rieger.
Well, can you hold that for a second? This is my discussion of the climate crisis. And I have been doing this. This is worldwide production of your basic foodstuffs. Now, according to Al Gore, this all collapsed in the year 2000, and we're all starving. It never happened. And the reason is that the climate models really don't work. So the top one is the production of corn. The next one are rice and wheat, and the bottom one are soybeans, which are steadily growing and doing very well. The reason is that the climate change we're supposed to see in all these models just never happens. We see some, but there's always been climate change, and the CO2 effect is just kind of weak. This is the classic thing of us dragging information out of the sort of junk media world of Washington, which produces a lot of confusing information. And when you drag it into our community, we suffer. We do not need to control our carbon to zero. I am a big fan of solar panels, because we always need more electricity. That is a constant. And why build another power plant somewhere else? We have the ability to get it off of our roofs. Those are tangible things. We have lots of environmental problems in the world. You can just look at the oceans. Those are things we should address. The only thing that really number 10 on the list is carbon. And everybody gets worked up about it. And I think this is another one of these media fear campaigns coming out of the national media for other reasons. And you're looking at people that want to sell electric cars or whatever else. And people who think that Google world is real information are just mistaken.
Okay.
Okay, so some 97% of actively publishing climate scientists agree that human behaviors are causing global warming and climate change. I'm not a scientist, but I do rely on the expertise of these scientists. Council has established environmental stewardship and sustainability as a goal and identified priorities for transitioning to electrification and carbon neutral energy sources. We did have a task force of local residents who provided numerous recommendations that council adopted, and that has led now to the development of a climate action plan that's currently in process. And we anticipate that when that plan comes back to council and with recommendations that we will implement those, again, relying on the expertise of the overwhelming majority of scientists who agree that this is a real problem and that we need to take action on it. Thank you.
Thank you. You can hold on to that. Other questions, Jody?
Yes, thank you. This gets back to the housing problem because everybody here understands that housing is a critical issue. So the reason that we have a housing crisis is, as Councilor Rieger pointed out, the land's hiring. So my question to you all is, to what extent do you think LAMO should be responsible for supporting the infrastructure that it demands with its 2,000 people being hired per year? And and this is all for the new pit production mission. And I would like to hear to what extent they're responsible for this infrastructure, and I'd like to hear more than just the taxes they pay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So the council does go to Washington once or more times a year to request transfer of land from NNSA/GOE. And every year we're told that they don't have any housing available to transfer. So at least for now, we have to deal with the available land that we have for housing development. I know you said don't talk about GRT, but the reality is that the laboratory does pay about 77% of the GRT to the county. So they are the major source of funding for our county government. We do desperately need housing, and we and many people in the community are working to find solutions to develop the land that we do have available, particularly in our downtown areas where we can build multifamily housing to be able to address the need for more residents to be able to live here that will help alleviate the traffic problems. There's very limited space left for single-family housing. There's Mirador in White Rock, and there's Alvarado in, I think that's the name, on North Mesa that has the potential. But mostly we're looking at land in the downtown areas for multifamily housing. Yes, the laboratory hiring is definitely responsible, and we're doing what we can to accommodate them. Thank you.
Well, I think we're going back to almost the same question as before. Yeah, we are a whole White Rock short of housing, one entire White Rock short. And we have infill spaces where we can build a lot of lower income housing, and especially the things that are under 300,000 that somebody discussed earlier. And those are very important things to do. But we still have a big demand for larger housing, single family homes, and there is nowhere to put them. There's some places where you could put townhouses, but really as a whole, the lab has to be responsible and give us something that can go with all of this growth. And we can see from looking around the room, looking at all the gray hairs, that a lot of people retire and don't leave. And so there isn't availability coming from the lab cycle. People retire and they hire another 1,000. And so they have to give us something, and it's just not responsible. But I don't think anyone is carrying that message through to it has to go to the Congress level, the U.S. Congress. I don't think our senators are doing anything. It's not since Senator Domenici left that we had anybody really advocate for our town.
Yeah.
I agree with Councilor Durkix and a good amount from Councilor Rieger. It is kind of irresponsible to be hiring that many people and not coming up with some sort of resources to help with that. You know, and we're seeing problems with commuting. It's you know, we've lost lives. And it's a very tricky thing. As Councilor Durkix mentioned, there really is not a lot of land left. So it would be helpful if the lab was able to give something for us to spread out a little bit more. But right now, I do think we need to be paying attention with the lab's changing mission. You know, the GRT is going to change and it's going to impact all of us. For right now, you know, I think we need to be focusing on some housing density, take care of the neighborhoods that exist, so that, you know, the character of the town is able to remain a little bit. So it's a tough one. Thanks for asking that question, Jody.
So as I look around this room, I see many millennial employees, you know, or your spouses were at Lennon, or I was at Lennon, now I'm not. But the point is, in answer to your question, yes, Lennon should be responsible and they should adult up. Now, how do we make them do that? Because this town and Lennon is a very symbiotic relationship. There's a back and forth. So as they decide to bring more people in, yes, they should be responsible and say, we're going to help you with housing. How do we get them to see that? This probably isn't politically correct or nice, but there's that part of me as a Marine. I'm like, sometimes you have to take the bat and hit them to get their attention. And once you do that, then you can have a conversation. So, that's my take.
Hold on to the mic there. Shall we move to closing statements?
Oh, yes, yes, great.
1 minute.
To the League of Women Voters, thank you so much for putting this on. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to come here and have people listen to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Of course I'm going to say vote for me, why else would I run? And I want you to know that I am accountable, and this is it. What you see is what you get. It is my intent to represent Los Alamos well and to be honorable and to be honest. I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. But you'll know exactly where I stand when I say what I say. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Candidate Herman, you may ask.
I love this community. I've considered running for council 3 times before this, but the time was just never right for me and my family. But the timing is just right for me right now. I bring my experience representing the business community and working with the people of Los Alamos. We have to make sure our business community can have workers who can live here. We need to focus on sustainability in our climate action plan. We need to make sure that the quality of life in Los Alamos continues to be great. Let's work together in a positive way to help Los Alamos thrive. I'm here to listen and then represent you when making educated decisions to keep Los Alamos a strong community and a great place to live. Please visit runforcouncil.com for more information and to support me. And please vote for me in the primary on June 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Durkis.
Los Alamos County has been my home for 42 years. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I've lived in 10 states. Together with my husband, I chose to live here, to raise our 3 sons here, and to stay here in retirement. This is my home. I hope to continue to help the county plan for growth, embrace the future, while preserving the past and the amenities that make Los Alamos County a great place to live. 3 key issues face the county: expanded housing development, proactive downtown revitalization, and enhanced community services. I welcome input from county residents on how we can best address these and other issues facing the county. My name is Denise Durkis. I look forward to continuing to serve on county council and to representing you, the people of Los Alamos County. And I humbly ask for your vote in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Well, I just want to go back to the leading point that many of the things that people take very seriously in society are actually campaigns from people that have corporate interests, and they're telling you to go get your shot, they're telling you to go get your electric car, and they're telling you to go to buy whatever else. And that is what's in the Google world, and that's within the Facebook world. And if you drag all those things into our county, including the climate action plan and including the LARIS plan and the other things that are really difficult for the people to absorb, they'll be very expensive and they'll be no benefit ever. The things we have to focus on are the tangible things, and we have tremendous issues facing us, and the county funds have to go towards our capital problems that exist, and that is developing business and housing environments in our downtown areas that are very attractive. And that's what we have. We have the land and we have the money to do it, and we can focus on that now. And that should be our focus as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, now we can all applaud.
Thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you to PAC 8. Thank you to our local press. Thank you to the attendees. Thank you to the Hill Talkers and Ms. Batha. There you are. Thank you all.